Hello, friends. It's Tony Ortiz, your boy, back, and we are in this game, Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, right here. And this is our tutorial series. I'm back with another episode, and in our modular series. So feel free to use and jump and skip around any of these videos that you like. But today, I'm going to talk to you about something that a lot of tutorial videos usually neglect to mention because they kind of just expect you to learn it on your own, and you can absolutely do that with your normal playthrough of the game. But I just wanted to touch on it, especially for the new runners that may be joining us in 2025 and beyond. And that is some of the gimmicks in the game. So there's a few things that are gimmicky, and I just want to cover those things for you. Okay, so basically, I'm going to use a little teleport in my base game save to go and show you a few of those things. The first one I want to show you is how water works. So you will notice that if you find an area with water in it, that the physics are a bit different. So now you're going to move way slower, and the only reason my Miriam is moving fast is because I have all this other stuff that gives me speed. But you'll notice that I move much faster up here than I do in the water. You can visibly see the loss of speed when I get into the water. So there's a few ways to mitigate that. We've already kind of discussed them in the shards and stuff. But basically, Miriam will always float in water unless you have this deep sinker shard. So I'm going to turn it off here to kind of demonstrate that. You can notice that I can't, no matter what I do with down or jumps, I can't really go down. I can jump into the water and I float down a little bit, but I can't really, like go downwards. And without deep sinker, if there's a chest underwater, I cannot actually hit up to open it because I'm not standing on top of it. No matter how close to it I can get. Even with like a double jump that gets me a little bit deeper and so on, just can't go down. So when you encounter water, there's a few things you can do to get through it. Now, deep sinker, the white shard that I just turned off, that's one of them. Another thing you can do is you can use a purple shard called Aqua Stream. So this is intended in the normal playthrough of the game for you to find this off of an enemy that's chilling in a big giant pool of water, which is the only place you have left to go. And basically, when you use it underwater, it costs no MP. So that's kind of an interesting thing. The hitbox is still active, so you can kind of use it to joust with enemies and go back and forth and do damage while you're also underwater. But this is the main way. You kind of hold it away from the direction you want to go, and then Miriam will go that direction. Kind of see we can go down. We can, and this is the enemy that drops it. We can still do damage, and we can even do things like break walls with it underwater. This is normally a breakable wall that I've already broken. But you can kind of see though if I go in here, there's a chest on the ground, and I couldn't open this without deep sinker. So this kind of shows you a little bit of how water works. The last way to traverse through water, it's not really intuitive, but you can learn if you just play around in the game, and that is to use invert. So we'll talk a little bit more about invert later in this video as well. But if you invert and then you jump up into the water, you will still sink away from gravity. But what you have underwater is the ability to hit the jump button and go upwards. Now, if you turn deep sinker back on and I sink down to the very bottom, well, how would I ever get out of anything unless I had to turn deep sinker off and then use Aqua Stream? How would this work? Well, the jump button still works with deep sinker. You can jump an infinite amount of times. This lets you infinitely climb and get out of water. So, when we have invert, reversing our physics, that still applies. So I will sink and fall out of the water still. So gravity's still going to pull me up here. But I can jump. And I can use this to traverse through water areas upside down. So those are the three main ways you're going to traverse through water areas. There's all sorts of cool ways you can do interesting, like 1 or 2 screen skips with combinations of invert, double jump to get you dive kick down and stuck underneath stuff. I don't think there's anything in this room, but like there's some sections in the game where you can actually dive kick underneath like a ledge and be stuck underwater, and then if you have like dimension shift or something, you can like use it to teleport past the thing blocking you. I've only done it a few times, but it is possible. So there's all sorts of cool, weird stuff that you can have going on with the water. So just keep that in mind. That's something that, you might have not discovered if you just play through the game normally. Okay, so I have a little list here. We're going to go through the next thing, and that is the small spaces in the game. And conveniently for us, there's one right here, which is why I picked this section. So, eventually, you're going to run into a small space like this. You're going to see a few of them littered throughout the castle. Sometimes there will be, like little reflection mirrors that'll get you through this guy. And sometimes there won't. But either way, you can always use the reflector ray shard to get through here. Now, keep in mind that this shard requires you to be standing on the ground. So if we all of a sudden turn off our deep sinker, I can't even get my beam out to get my reflector ray out. So, just keep that in mind. You reflector ray through this, and bada boom, you're through the other side. Now, if you get reflector ray stuck in here, which is possible, you'll just be auto crouched. But remember, when you are crouched, you can hit the jump button to slide. So you just slide right out. So some of these will have like a little area where you can walk up and just slide through them. Like if you're coming back through the reverse way in the volcano area, you can just kind of slide right through this bad boy, and you don't need a reflector ray or dimension shift to go back through in the other direction because you're going the other way. But if you did want to come back, you would need that because you'd have like a little ledge like this. This is important to know, especially for max chaos, because there's some checks that are required to have one of these two items to get through this little thing. And even in STS, there's an accessory check in the Secret Sorcery Lab, I think it's called. It's the one past the train. And that requires you to have one of these. And that has an accessory check afterwards. So you'll want to check that out. And then the other way to get through is, of course, Dimension Shift. Again, even if you Dimension Shift short, you can just slide through. But you can just Dimension Shift right past this kind of thing. This gates off several sections of the game. They used it to kind of make the game linear, to force you down a path in the normal game, but with Randomizer, you can find stuff and you can open up getting past these little small sections. In that manner. All right. So now I want to show you the next thing I have here. Which is going to be environmental damage. I'm going to show you the two different kinds of environmental damage. They pretty much operate the exact same way. But we'll cover them both just to be sure that you're familiar. So here are spikes. These can be on the ceiling or on the ground. And they just deal you a bunch of damage. I'm not sure if it's percentage based, but I'm pretty sure it is because my Miriam has a ton of defense and a ton of HP. And yeah, so they do damage. Now, if you have an armor called Aegis Plate, you just completely block all this stuff. And this is kind of intended progression. This is how you get into the OSL lab, where Zangetsu 2 is, and gives you the Zangetsu Toe in the vanilla game. You kind of have a combination of this and the Craftwork shard and how it works, as well, which we will actually also cover. So yeah, we got that. Then, let's go here and back. We also have lava. And lava pretty much works the exact same way. Okay, just going to run to the lava here. Hey, look, there's one of those ones that you can slide through that I was talking about. But to go back, I'd have to have the... And you can see, I'm standing in lava. I get the exact same thing as the spikes. It takes a few seconds to be able to retick and do damage to you again. But it works the exact same way. The only thing that I wanted to especially mention and note, and I've kind of talked about it in the enemies video as well, but there is a section in the last fight of the game where if you roll the cat head for the RNG, at the very end of its attack, it will summon a pool of lava. This armor will not prevent that lava's damage. It used to when the game was very early stages, but the devs didn't like that. You could just completely negate the cat special attack by putting this armor on. So they went ahead and fixed that. So any other lava, this will protect you from the damage, but that will not. So keep that in mind. All right. Then we're going to teleport out of here. And I'm going to show you a few more special tricks. Oh, I did not mean to do that. The first one's going to be using specific shards to get to places where you wouldn't normally go. Okay, so in this section we have Gale Crawler, and we're going to use it on this Iron Maiden. For whatever reason, when you stand close to an Iron Maiden and you use Gale Crawler, that happens. So don't know why, but it happens. And then you can use this to push this out of the way and get whatever is behind it. Normally, this doesn't really matter too much, but in a max chaos, this can let you check this chest early, depending on what you have, instead of using the craftwork purple, or sorry, the craftwork blue, which normally you would do the craftwork blue and you would grab this while it's still open and you would move it out of the way. This is the normal way to get into OSL. This combined with that armor that makes you take less damage. Up here, there's a room with a bunch of spikes and hallways with these Iron Maidens in them that you use the combination of these two things to get past. But with just that armor, or even with enough damage, healing, or damage reduction from the spikes, you can actually still get through that area. And, you can make a decision. Basically, which will come into play when we talk about routing. I'm going to save that for a separate video, but just know that that is a thing. All right. We're actually going to go to that section now, but we're going to go to it from the other direction. The next thing I want to show you is a very, very easy clip that will be legal in the tournament. What tournament, you ask? I don't know. What tournament? You should probably watch the last video in this playlist to find out about something related to a tournament, maybe? So, this is very easy to do. I'm going to show you exactly how to do it. You can learn how to do it in about 30 seconds. So if you will have to have the invert shard for this, but this is the back door to the OSL area, and sometimes it's going to be very difficult for you to find the Aegis plate, and especially the craftwork blue. And sometimes you might want to get in here and check the purple shards that are back here for STS, or you might just have to get in here for max chaos because you have no other options. And remember, the logic in our game is not really logic. It soft locks a significant amount, not a majority amount, not probably 10 to 15% of the time. So this is a way to get into this area with only the invert shard. Basically, what you want to do is just kind of taunt this enemy to come here, and you just want to get it a little bit higher. So you want to do like a little bit of jumps, let it grab you, and it will. If you do it correctly, it'll pull you through the floor into the other side. So this is a little bit of a not quite set up the right way, but this is good. You actually seeing it not work is a good thing, because now you kind of like get an idea of like how you have to kind of motion. You can reset this really quickly as well. So what I like to do is just come stand by, aggro it, and then kind of do like really short hops. The short hops get it usually right at the perfect height, and there you go. Clip through the floor, and now I'm into this whole other section of the castle. And normally I have to have the craftwork shard, and then either the Aegis plate armor or a bunch of healing to get through the spikes. Or Gale Crawler as well to, do what we just did and close those Iron Maidens so you can get past them. Yeah. So, there you go. Also, quick note, I kind of forgot to show it because we needed that Iron Maiden open to get that thing closed with Gale Crawler. But you can also actually con the little toad enemy into jumping into the Iron Maiden and closing it for you in that one specific section. Unfortunately, with this other area right here where you normally get into OSL the correct way, there are no enemies to do that to. So that's why I wanted to cover this specifically. All right, and then last, we're going to talk about probably the thing you're gonna run into the most, and that is what Yeezy likes to call coyote time. But basically, what it means is there's this extra set of frames of action of time you have when you're in the air to when you can still jump. And normally, once you take an action that involves a jump button, you can't perform another one. Now with the double jump, you can just jump again, but there's going to be a lot of times where you don't have double jump, and you jump off this ledge and you do it quick enough. But you see, if I slide off the ledge a little bit too far, now I can't jump. My timing window is done. So what happens is, you can actually slide jump. You can get further distance. Just take a quick look here at how far I jump. I land about right there. If I slide off, I land way over there, right? Or at least a little further. Sometimes you can make some gaps to save some time with this. Sometimes it's useful for climbing up stuff. And you also want to slide off ledges usually too, because it saves a few frames. This is just kind of some speed tech. But yeah, it's kind of like this window where, like Wile E. Coyote, you'd run on Roadrunner, you'd run off the edge, and you still have time to run back. Unfortunately, you lose height immediately, so you can't just run back, but you can jump back if you're fast enough. This window does get a little tighter, especially if you're on capped FPS. If you're playing on PC and you have uncapped FPS, you will have a little bit larger of a window. But you can do this out of pretty much anything that has a movement ability attached to it. So I can double jump from the ground, and I can jump afterwards. If I jump, I can't jump again unless I have double jump. But if I jump from the ground, if I don't jump, if I dimension shift from the ground, I can jump out of it. Again, there's a very small window of frames before you can do this. You can also do it with reflector ray as well. A little bit harder to show in this room because the ceiling's a little... Let's show it off here. We'll get it eventually. There you go. And then I'm jumping. And this does come into play in one other place, which I'll show you real quick. Just going to quickly refill my health just in case we don't want any kind of crazy mishaps in the tutorial video. We're going to go back to this big room, though. And I'll show you a little bit of the strategy you can implement depending on, you know, what your environment has for you. So normally in the game, there's this big pillar, this big stone pillar here where you haven't broken this with the craft work and the sequence. And you'll normally have like a little pillar you can stand on here. And if you have reflector ray and a very specific piece of equipment, any boots that have the special attack, so that right there, you can actually stand on this, and if you go from a 45-degree angle, like, you know, it's about right here, and you chain these well enough, you'll actually be able to get all the way to the other side and over the big stone head that's blocking your way. So you can kind of sequence break the game a little bit. You can even see right there that I can get all the way across by using technique like this. Now, a lot of this stuff costs MP, and you're not seeing it drain from me because I have Jeeble's glasses on, so that's another consideration. But this technique can be applied in a lot of different places. You know, it's not usually going to save you time or open a new area on its own. But there are various places where you can use it to kind of like basically gamble. You know, if you're playing a runner that you think is better than you, you can use it to maybe go to a different section that they wouldn't normally go to. You know, you can use it to, in a seed that you think is soft locked, try to get into another area and, you know, make sure that, you know, you can finish it. There's all sorts of things you can do with tricks and stuff like this. There's another special thing that you can do that stays in bounds called the chair bounce, which I haven't learned how to do yet. But if I do learn that, I will make an extra video just on how to do that. And I will add it to the tutorial series for you guys. But the reason I wanted to show you guys all of this kind of stuff is because all of this is going to be legal in that maybe announced thing that's at the end of this playlist. Luckily, all these are dropping at the same time, so I'm not spoiling anybody. But effectively, the reason I wanted to cover that is because there is going to be a few things that are banned, out of bounds are going to be banned. And in the normal course of play and casual races, it's commonly agreed that that kind of stuff, like out of bounds and stuff, is banned. But I wanted to show that off because the special weapon, the special technique that's on a lot of the foot weapons, the boot weapons, they can be used in conjunction with some other purple shards to do like infinite vertical climbing, as long as you have MP. And that stuff is not going to be allowed. But I just wanted to show you this little trick with the boots like I showed you there, because that kind of stuff will be allowed. Because that's in the normal, you know, course of playing the game. You know, like being able to do those kicks in a row as long as you have MP, that's normally part of the game. You're not like doing anything that the developers didn't like, you know about when they designed the game. Infinitely vertically climbing, unfortunately, with using like one of the 3 purples that makes it possible and one of those shoes, it's not too hard to do. The barrier of entry is a little bit more difficult than other techniques. There's a lot of other ways to express your really top tier skill though, that other than doing that. And if we allowed that, a lot of our matches would just be like so one-sided, because there may be a seed where you're forced to go to the caverns. That's just the only place the logic will let you go. And if someone that can do those techniques has the ability, they can just continue and go through the north part of the castle, which is much faster and it has more checks in it, and just like put themselves at such a massive advantage, you know, as opposed to having to follow the same route as everyone else and play the same game. We want people to make route differentiation, and we want people to make gambles and like, you know, all that stuff with where they go. It's another layer of RNG on top of the shard drop RNG that makes the stuff interesting. But we also don't want it to be so warped that some of the matches are just completely uninteresting and most likely over from like the first few minutes, right? And the main reason, again, is that we don't have to worry about it so much in MaxCast is because these shoes, there's only a couple of them that show up in treasure chests, and like otherwise you have to go out of your way and craft them. But Kung Fu shoes ends up in a key item chest. So in STS, which our event is going to be, these are just going to be available all the time. So, and all the shards that do the climbing are purple. So people are going to be farming purples. They're going to find them. So the thing is, this is just going to be available a significant number of times when it would be useful. And we just want to cut that out, especially, you know, just to give new players a better experience and to give all of our viewers a better experience. And, you know, not have to explain how this dumb thing works in every race that it comes up in. So there you go. Those are the tips and tricks. There's a few more, but most of them will not really save you any time or like affect what you're going to do, decision making, routing, and stuff. And I even showed you a couple there that just shave a few seconds of time off here and there. So check out all the rest of the videos in our tutorial series if you feel that it will be useful to you. And like I mentioned earlier in this one, make sure you watch that final video in the playlist for a very special announcement. If you're in 2025 and watching in 2025, you definitely want to check that out. All right, we'll see you in the next one, though.